it is. There's the Chronic Dimension Theater.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Chronic Dimension Theater. I apologize for not posting an episode in a little bit, but I have been busy as I just had my second baby, so I've been pretty busy with her. But I figure I gotta post something, so I apologize that this is gonna be not very edited too well. It's gonna be a little more raw. I don't got a lot of time. That being said, this will be another quick toke. However, I am going to mix two quick toke episodes that I plan on doing into one. So it's kind of like a double feature. Of course, it is time for everybody's favorite segment, the highlights of Halloween nostalgia, as I barely have enough time to do many more of these because Halloween is like 2 days away. So I gotta push them as much as I can, as quick as I can. Today we're going to be talking about two very different movies that have one thing in common. It is that both films are actually the screenwriting debut for two very, very prolific screenwriters. I mean, if you're going to be shocked, for sure. Alrighty, let's get into the first one, that being the movie Creepshow from 1982. This is one of my favorite Halloween rewatches and just one of my favorite horror movies in general. In case you are unaware of the movie and what it's about, let's go over the plot synopsis real quick. It is 6 grisly tales about a murdered father rising from his grave, a bizarre meteor, a vengeful husband, a mysterious crate's occupant, a plague of cockroaches, and a disgruntled boy, as listed by IMDb. So it's an anthology movie. Think like Trick or Treat, if you've seen that, or think more recently like the American Horror Stories series that's on Hulu. Just quick little tales that don't really tie into each other that much, but have cool little self-contained frights. Like I said, this movie came out in 1982. It is directed by George A. Romero. If that name sounds familiar, of course, he started the Night of the Living Dead franchise. If you think classic zombies, you know, slow, pale, greenish, like, you know, like a classic fucking zombie, man. He made it. That's him. All right. And this film was also written by Stephen King. And this is his screenwriting debut, which I knew he had involvement in the film. He also acts in the film as well in one of the stories. But I did not know that this was the first film that he ever did the screenwrite for. So, wow, very awesome. Of course, we all know that Stephen King will go on to be one of the most prolific horror writers of all time. This movie is fresh off the publication of his most, unique book, I think, and a very important read, Dance Macabre. It's basically a breakdown of the horror genre up to that point at the time of him writing, and it is completely based on a course that he lectured at the University of Maine, which I think is very interesting, that before he decided to actually put pen to paper and start writing on his own, he was actually teaching and sharing his knowledge of movies. What a fucking quality guy. Now, this movie was released at the Cannes Film Festival first in May of 1982, and then it hit general theaters in November of 1982. The film's budget was $8 million, and in the United States it saw a return of $21 million, which, that's almost triple. That's not too bad. It's pretty good, especially for an independent film at this time. Creepshow was mostly filmed at a vacated and then converted all-girl boarding school in the area of Greensburg, Pennsylvania. If you are familiar with the movie, or if you decide to go watch it after this, it's very interesting that they're in an area called Greensburg, especially after the meteor story. That's maybe it has something to do with why it's so green. Other filming locations include the Carnegie Mellon University. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I never went to college. My bad. Whatever. Also, a suburb of Fox Chapel, which is where they filmed the Father's Day sequence. And also, filming took place on Island State Beach in New Jersey. That's where they filmed the famous live burial at the beach in Tide You Over. Now, one little fun fact that I learned is most of the filming was done within Pennsylvania, and that's actually part of a tradition that George A. Romero has. It seems that he grew up in Pennsylvania, and I think that it's very cool that he strictly, or at least tries to, film as much as he can back in his hometown or where he grew up, just to kind of think as like growing up at this time and just looking around different areas of the scenery and probably daydreaming about like a scene that could be going on, or just like a cool shot that could take place while you're waiting for the bus or something, and then later on in life you grow up and you're like, oh man, I remember I pictured that when I was a kid, now I get to fucking do it. I think that's very, very cool. Now, the biggest standout factor that this film has, even within the franchise itself, is the visual homages to horror comics of the 1950s. Now, there are 2 feature-length sequels to this first film. There is Creepshow 2 and Creepshow 3 as far as I know, and I do believe there's also a Shudder original series by the same name. I have seen the second Creepshow movie. I think I started the third one, but it was kind of weird, and I don't have Shudder, so I have not seen the show. However, from what I have seen of snippets of bits and pieces of the second film, third film, and some photos, I guess, of the series, it like I said, it doesn't have the same exact visual feel as this first film. They really capture something special here. Now, what they captured specifically is an homage to comics in the 50s, EC comics, that's entertaining comics. Now, they were synonymous, or at least famous, for doing a bunch of different kinds of comics, but they had their whole little run of horror comics, also anthology series, so you can see that where their inspiration came from. Now, EC Comics had a bunch of very popular titles like Tales from the Crypt, which featured its own host, the Crypt Keeper, very, very famous. I grew up watching Tales from the Crypt, the TV show, so I noticed that right away. They also had a title called The Vault of Horror, which had its own host as well, the Vault Keeper. And then they also had another one called The Haunt of Fear, which had another host called The Witch, which she's called The Witch. I think they could have thought of something a little bit better. The Haunt, The Haunter, or the Fear Monger, I don't know. The Witch sounds very boring compared to the Vault Keeper and the Crypt Keeper, but that's just my opinion. Clearly, the comic style wasn't the only inspiration that Romero and King had from EC's line of horror titles, as they also decided to create their own iconic host for their title. That is the character, the Creep. The Creep is involved in part of the story. You'll see the Creep in the introduction scene of the movie, as well as towards the ending as well. That has to do with the disgruntled boy. Basically, he is reading the Creepshow comics, and his father is like a fucking asshole. I don't know why he doesn't want him reading comics. Stupid. But yeah, so the Creep gets him. The Creep is watching over the boy. Now, the design of the Creep is honestly my all-time favorite design of any ghoulish, demonic, cryptid entity in any media, honestly, whether it be comic books or movies. I just think that they really nailed something special, specifically in the first movie. I know that the Creep kind of goes through some slight stylistic changes, but just the way the Creep looks in this one, Ooh, so that's lightning in a bottle. Now, to help the pair achieve the iconic look of Creepshow, they brought in probably one of the most iconic effects creators of all time. That's Tom Savini. He is famous for creating most of the kill effects in the original Friday the 13th, as well as actually being the creator of Jason Voorhees himself, as he wasn't really as much of a player in the original script for the first film until Tom Savini decided just that throw him in at the end for one last scare. So it's actually he's kind of a little creator of evil himself. He's also done a little bit of acting as well. He is in the movie Dusk Till Dawn by Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez. He plays Sex Machine, which that's my favorite role of his. Anytime I think Tom Savini, I think Sex Machine. Now, Tom decided to make some, immaculate props. Not only did he make amazing costumes in stories like Father's Day or Tide You Over, but he also did amazing animatronic work and I guess not animatronic, but puppetry, you can say. In the, I forgot what the last story is called, but it's got all the cockroaches, blech, yuck. He also did a lot of practical work. I know they ordered something like 20,000 cockroaches from Costa Rica, which my father-in-law's family is from Costa Rica, and my mother-in-law told me that the cockroaches are no fucking joke in Costa Rica. So 20,000, I'm pretty sure it was 20,000. It might have been more. That's a shit ton. Ugh. I know that was one of their most expensive things in their effects budget was ordering all of those cockroaches. But on top of all of that, they also decided to use some classic red and blue lighting. That is, of course, an homage to classic comic books that came with those 3D old school glasses with a red and blue lens. They also that was to help accentuate the shocks and scares and have them pop up at you, and they also use that just for tone in the film. I noticed at some slow and somber points they use some blue lighting, during some more extreme points they use the red lighting, but sometimes they use just a sweet mixture of both. They also decided to use some very intricate panel framing, which I never really appreciated growing up until I decided to do this most recent rewatch. I really appreciate the panel framing in the first story, Father's Day. At first I was like, what? Why does it have this Victorian style frame around it? What does that have to do? Why couldn't they just do a classic comic panel? And then I realized oh my goodness, it's the frosting on the cake, which that's the icing on the cake. It's just a nice little detail, and it really helps bring in that comic book feel. They also decided to do long react takes where the camera would hold on a actor's face whenever they were reacting to a shock or a fright, and that was obviously to mimic the feeling of a frozen image on a panel, but you're playing it out in your head. You got the speech bubbles, the thought bubbles, what have you, and you obviously kind of played that scene in your head when you see somebody screaming, and you would imagine what their shock would be like. I think seeing that in live action is just very, very well done. Like I said, this movie is from the 80s, very early 80s, I'll add, so it can be a little bit dated, but I think it's very fun. It isn't extremely terrifying. I think it's a nice little gateway into some more serious horror. I think the stories aren't incredibly fleshed out either, but I think it's just very fun. And like I said, this is a highlight of Halloween nostalgia. It's just something that I watched growing up, and I think it's very fun. So if you haven't checked it out, I would recommend going to watch it before this Halloween spooky season is over. And if you have seen it, well, what do you think? Do you like the sequels? Have you seen the Shudder original? Should I give that a watch? I probably won't, but maybe if enough people say that I should, then maybe I will. But that's enough of Creepshow. Let's move on to our second movie that we're going to talk about, and that is actually the first live-action Scooby-Doo movie. What do these two movies have in common? Like I said, the screenplay was actually written by somebody extremely famous, which really shocked me, and it's also the first major screenwrite that this person ever had, very similar to Stephen King. So let's just jump right in. If you have been living under a rock, which I won't judge you, I know there are some people who have yet to see this movie. Let's quickly break down this plot synopsis. It reads, after an acrimonious breakup, the Mystery Inc. gang are individually brought to an island resort to investigate strange goings-on. And that's straight from IMDb, very, very fucking vague. Basically, it's like a continuation from the show. You can kind of, if you watch the original cartoon, you can kind of see that as like their teenage years, and this movie is kind of like their late 20s, you know? They're not exactly adults, but they're definitely aged up a bit. This movie came out in 2002 and was directed by Raja Gosnell, which he has directed movies like Never Been Kissed with Drew Barrymore, Home Alone 3, which is the first Home Alone movie that doesn't have Macaulay Culkin as the lead, which honestly I don't mind. I kind of like that one. It's pretty interesting. And he also did Big Mama's House, which those are all three very interesting movies. And then just to add Scooby-Doo in here too, I think that man just wants some money, which, you know, no hate. Now, interestingly enough, Scooby-Doo from 2002 is the first major screenwrite from James Gunn. Yes, the president of the new DC films, as of time of recording. He started off writing fucking Scooby-Doo movie, which, Jesus Christ, he has gone through a crazy range of different movies, so it's very interesting to see that this is what he decided to start with, though. But at the same time, it's very solid writing when it comes to an ensemble characters. Just like we've seen whenever he wrote Dawn of the Dead, all of the Guardians of the Galaxy films, as well as the second Suicide Squad. And he's also really good at subverting expectations when it comes to antagonism, like the who and the why and like so what, which is that usually pulls on the heartstrings. Usually you're like, that person's the villain, fuck them, and then you're like, oh wait, I'm the fucking villain, damn, fuck me. And then it's like a whole reflective thing that he does. Now, this movie was produced by the Mosaic Media Group, which produced this first and second Scooby-Doo movie, as it did get a sequel afterwards. They also produced Talladega Nights, Step Brothers, and The Lazarus Effect. And this movie was also distributed by Warner Brothers, WB. If you've seen the movie, you see, the big WB shield gets changed into the little Scooby-Doo emblem, or it's like a Scooby-Doo snack or something, and then he takes a bite out of it or some shit. But yeah. On June 14th in 2002, the film was released fresh off an $84 million budget, and the worldwide return was $275 million. Good lord, that's a nice little chunk of change. Unfortunately, this next thing isn't exactly what I would call a fun fact. It's more like a sad fact, but this was the last time that William Hanna from the famous Hanna-Barbera cartoons, aka the creators of Scooby-Doo, Flintstones, Jetsons, Yogi Bear, this was the last time that William Hanna was an executive producer on any media before his unfortunate passing. So, I mean, maybe that's why this one just feels so fucking good, and any other, at least in my opinion, Scooby-Doo movie has just not felt as good. Like, maybe it didn't have that Hanna-Barbera seal of approval. Now let's go ahead and jump into the all-star cast, because good lord, perhaps it's the nostalgia from the highlights of Halloween nostalgia rubbing off, but I mean, can y'all say born for these roles? Because Jesus, Freddie Prinze Jr. as Fred, he's Fred. Like, what else? That's Fred. What could you ask for? You got Sarah Michelle Gellar as Daphne, and they are both fresh off of I Know What You Did Last Summer, and their off-screen romance, as they were a couple at the time, and I believe they're still married, it made for incredible on-screen chemistry, especially that this movie is actually the first instance that the characters of Fred and Daphne are actually truly romantically involved as a couple. You know, sometimes they flirt in the cartoons and stuff like that, but they never were together until this movie, actually, which they did a great job. Linda Cardellini, she embodies the strength and the smarts and really pushes Velma's character to progress within the group. Yeah, she does say, I can't see without my glasses, at least once or twice in the film, but she kicks some ass, especially after the intro scene when they split up and then they finally meet back together on Spooky Island. She shows that she doesn't need no fucking group, okay? It's all Velma. Just like the show Velma, which I haven't seen yet, but a lot of people were hating on it. I'm pretty sure it's probably okay. But of course, the spotlight performance goes to Matthew Lillard's complete transformation into Shaggy. I know a lot of people, his portrayal receives considerable praise from the internet, especially lately. Millennials love Matthew Lillard, and they love Matthew Lillard's Shaggy, and lump me into that category. But it's honestly very easy to forget how much he truly dissolves into that wig and goatee. Go ahead and watch his character in Scream. Go ahead and watch his portrayal as Stu Macher, and then fucking watch him as Shaggy, the night and fucking day. It's insane. Kudos to him. Now, the iconic and well-memed Scooby-Doo laugh wouldn't be the same, wouldn't sound the same. Everybody's doing it now. Everybody's doing their own imitations, and they're doing memes of it always. And I'm pretty sure it's the laugh from this movie specifically. But that was brought to life by Mr. Neil Fanning, which is an Australian actor and stuntman. And across Scooby, you got Mr. Scott Ines reprising his role as Scrappy-Doo. Now, fun fact, Ines is he's the voice of many characters, specifically from Hanna-Barbera cartoons. He is the voice of Fred Flintstone, Barney Rubble, Bugs Bunny, Yogi Bear, and both Shaggy and Scooby, as well as being the voice of Scrappy-Doo. So I think it's very interesting that they decided to go with a different voice actor for the movie, for Scooby's voice, when they actually they had the actor there. Maybe they just didn't want to pay him double. I bet that's it. Now that I'm saying it out loud, Warner Brothers for sure did not want to pay this man double for 2 roles. That's why it happened. Fucking dicks. Now, this movie's got another all-star cast member. It's got Rowan Atkinson as Emil Mondavarius. I fucking love Rowan Atkinson, and he's great in this movie. He plays the perfect balance of caring yet suspicious, and then at some points just downright nefarious. You're not too sure if he's a sweet guy, if you should feel bad for him, if he's a little fucking sus, and then at some points you're just God, this man is evil. Now, this film also has one of my favorite cameos in all of fucking film cameo history. It's got Sugar Ray, the fucking band. Sugar Ray is actually one of my biggest guilty pleasure bands, I guess you could say. I love me some fucking Sugar Ray, and I think Sugar Ray needs to be in more films. I'm sorry if they have controversy. Just guess. I don't know of it, but I like their music. So, now, filming for this movie took place in Queensland, Australia. and in and around the area of Queensland, Australia, with scenes involving the attractions, like their spooky island rides and stuff like that they go through. Those were actually shot at Warner Brothers Movie World, which I didn't even fucking know was a thing. But of course, I don't know much about Australian theme parks, but I guess it's basically like Universal Studios but for Warner Brothers movies, which that's fucking awesome. And then the resort scenes, as well as the beach scenes, the ones that include my man's Sugar Rays, those are actually shot at the Tangalooma Resort, which that's also in the Queensland, Australia area. I would hope that if you go to the Tangalooma Resort these days, they have some little areas that pay homage to this beautiful film. Maybe on Halloween they have like a spooky island party or something. That'd be cool. Originally it was skirting that PG-13 rating. The film originally included the confirmation of a long-time fan theory that Shaggy is a stoner. Hell yeah. It was me, Shaggy. It was me. It's really cool. I would imagine that just means that he probably would have been rolling up some fucking fat blunts in the movie, or maybe he would have been eating some brownies or something. But that would have been very cool. Originally, this film had plenty more adult humor, which some of it was actually left in the film, and I guess some of it is actually in some deleted scenes that you can check out in the DVD. I guess there was also a lot more cleavage in the movie, which I guess they had to use CGI to cover all that up for the final film, because they couldn't really just go back and reshoot that. So I haven't done a rewatch for this one yet, so if you decide to, let me know if you can tell that there's some CGI cleavage cover-up. But that is all I have for this episode, this quick toke. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to me talk about some of my two favorite movies to watch. They're both a little bit on different ends of the spectrum. One you can watch with your family, with your kids if you got some, after trick-or-treating, while you're eating some candy, and once they're all passed out on that sugar high, go ahead and pop on Creepshow for you. Get yourself a little gin and juice, get yourself a little smoke, and enter the Chronic Dimension Theater. I will try my best to post one more episode before Halloween, if not on Halloween Day. But if I don't, I'm so sorry. Having two kids is fucking crazy busy. But thank you guys for listening. Have a happy Halloween. Enjoy the rest of your spooky season. And peace out, bitch.